Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you guys for joining me again. My name is Wilkie and I'm here with final Payton Void Guide series. We're taking a look at the Underwater Sanctuary Payton Void number 3. Boy, before we actually go into some intricate mechanics, this is definitely a very annoying dungeon to do in a pug or so-called pickup group, due to numerous mechanics that, if you don't know how they work, you can easily wipe or reset the progress of your party, which usually ends up making people very upset, to either to the point where they just AFK, throw, or just want to abandon the dungeon. So be prepared that if you do run this in a random group, it's probably not going to go very well unless you have experienced people. Needless to say, this guide is to help you avoid any of these troubles that new players may or may not encounter, so let's dive right into it. So, oxygen mechanic aside, there isn't really anything to worry about for the first boss. It's just another DPS check with your typical don't get hit too often, use potions if you're about to die, and just kill the boss while not dying yourself. That really is everything about the first boss, so we're just gonna leave this here. As you can see here in the room, we have a bunch of people that overgear this dungeon. Not everybody though. Generally though, there is not really anything that completely wipes you or can make you fail this boss, so just kill it and move on. So a quick note before going to the second boss fight, there is a position mechanic that people assign themselves to before fighting the second boss. However, this mechanic is actually for the third boss, and I'll explain the mechanic in depth when fighting the third boss. Just be alarmed that positions have to happen beforehand, because boss 2 and 3 are directly lined up after each other, so there's no phase, no break in between, unless you wipe of course. But if you desire to clear them in one go, positions are to be set before actually going for the second boss fight. Before we actually get to the second boss fight, there's gonna be a sub-boss. I don't exactly understand what kind of purpose it serves, it's just gonna be another punching bag. Personally, I would not recommend using awakening skills on this one, because like I said, this is more of an intermediate break or something. I don't exactly understand why this boss is even there, but it doesn't really serve any other purpose but just slow your progress down a little bit. Just like with the first one, stay alive, don't use too many potions, and just kill it. So we finally have reached the actual second boss, which is a water giant, and the arena has a circle which circles around the way you move. So unlike, for example, Kaiser Raid, where you actually get to choose your camera by using your mouse wheel, you cannot align your camera, but it just takes a few seconds to get used to the mechanic here. Basically the same rule applies here as to any other void really. Don't get hit by too many things, dodge AoEs. There is one mechanic in particular though that needs explanation, because that can make or break your run at this stage. So the mechanic incorporates the 4 pillars which are located in the cardinal directions. 6 out of the 8 players will receive a rather large AoE circle around them, and their goal is to spread out so they don't overlap each other. You can overlap the circles themselves, you just have to make sure nobody is actually physically with a character inside your circle and nobody gets hurt. One player doesn't have anything, and the last player is actually the one with the most critical task. The selected player will not have a big AoE around, but rather an arrow kind of thing pointing over his head. That is the player that the boss will target, and will launch a straight line attack, destroying the pillar in the process and getting impaired. I did use my Lancemaster counter to avoid the incoming damage. Obviously, not every class has this option, so you have to take the hit, or you can dodge out right in time. Even if you do get hit, it doesn't one-shot kill you. And you definitely want to do this mechanic, because if you don't do this mechanic, well, this is what happens. This mechanic repeats up until 4 times, or depending on your kill power, maybe even less. So once you destroyed all 4 pillars, there's no more mechanic of this to take care of. Needless to say, if you only have 1 or 2 pillars left, you should rotate around those pillars, because if you are on the opposite side and maybe you don't have any mobility skill or you just got knocked down, it may actually be hard to get to the right pillar. So rotate yourself around those pillars so you are in position whenever the mechanic hits. And there you have it, the second boss is about to die, and like I said, immediately after the cutscene that leads into the last boss, you will instantly start the fight. The first mechanic that I want to explain is the positions mechanic. Remember the screenshot I showed you earlier of the positions we took in one of our runs? This isn't 100% perfect, and I'll show you why. If you take a look at my glorious paint image here, the red circles are positions, or 7 positions that people have to take. So you basically have 5 in the top, 1 all the way down to the bottom, 1 like slightly to the center, and a big blue circle. If you take a look at the image behind it on the screenshot, you actually can see that there's 2 people in the center, which isn't really an optimal scenario. The reason why I made this blue circle in the middle a little bit bigger is because that specific spot is random, so it may be a little bit to the right, it may be a little bit to the left, it might be above or below the boss. So this spawn is actually randomized, the other ones are fixed. So in our scenario, we actually should have only 1 player in the center, and the other one has to move a little bit further down below. This is what the mechanic actually looks like in-game. It starts when he spawns himself in the center and has 2 trident/spears swirling around him. So as you can see here, why I said this isn't optimal, it caused a lot of confusion, and it wasn't very clear whether I should take the center one or the bottom one. And also you can see that the bard was not getting a position, so he took slight damage. Keep in mind though that this bard was item level 1300. If you do this as a fresh 960 item level character, you're gonna die if you don't step on the right plate. So definitely make sure this mechanic works. So to help you figure out about the positions, I drew some lines, which are not really, like, it's really rudimentary, but you should get the idea. Bottom 2 spots, center RNG spot, and then I'm marking the ones on the top. You can't fully see the one on the top, and we can see the one on the far left, but you should get an idea of what the positioning mechanic looks like now. And here's an example where the randomized spot in the center is actually directly above the boss. The more critical mechanic starts at 28 and 12 HP bars. This is a fixed number, so you can exactly know when the boss is about to do. As a prerequisite, keep your impairment skills before the boss reaches that HP bar, so if you can see the boss nearing that threshold, just use auto attacks or any other skill that doesn't actually have impairment on it. Because the next mechanic is a two-phase thing, it starts off with impairment. The boss moves to the center and gets an impair bar, which is actually pretty hard to crack. So what we do is use our hard-hitting impairment skills alongside using whirlwind bombs, because time is very critical here. So we want to impair the boss as fast as possible. Once you've done with the impairment, the second phase sort of starts, or basically it's running alongside. You branch out and move outside of the blue circle in the center, and outside you will see big yellow bright glowing orbs and also small yellow darker glowing orbs. Your goal is to prevent those orbs from reaching the outside of the water wall that we just passed. The small ones can be killed. They take a little bit more than just a few auto attacks, but usually 1 or 2 hard-hitting skills is enough. So make sure you save some of the skills that don't actually have good impairment or weak impairment, so you have some skills to kill the small orbs. The big ones cannot be killed, but if you have trouble clearing the mechanic, you can actually use sleep bombs in order to prevent them reaching the boss. Using sleep bombs though, however, you gotta make sure you don't actually hit them, or otherwise you'll wake them up. Basically, impair as fast as possible, go out, branch out, destroy every yellow orb outside, and once you've done that, the mechanic is over after a while and the boss moves slightly above the center and has a downtime of around about 2 seconds. Like I said, this mechanic kicks in at 28 bars and then again at 12 bars. The mechanic is exactly the same every time, so there's nothing new, there's no randomized factor. Just go in, prepare your bombs, prepare your impairment skills, then branch out, kill the small yellow orbs, and then you're done. So, a few general tips. There's one attack that I would like to mention, and that is the very big AoE that he spawns starting from 20 HP bars onwards. And as you can see here on the screen, I actually managed to cancel this attack out by consuming a little blue orb slash sphere. Like, this one looks a bit different from the other blue ones, so it can be hard to spot, but consuming slash touching this orb will actually cancel out his big AoE. In the video I did use the trick of using the full CC immunity from our dash from the spacebar, so I didn't actually get CC'd. If you consume this orb without any CC immunity, you'll actually get frozen, but in return your 7 other teammates can keep on DPSing the boss, so it's definitely recommended to try and look for that blue orb and cancel his AoE. The last tip that I want to give you for this boss fight in particular is keep an eye on your teammates. There's a lot of freezing, a lot of AoE. It can be quite messy due to 8 people moving around. The boss room filling with a lot of AoEs, with some orbs, and it's very common to get frozen by this or that move. As you can see here on the screen, I got frozen. Whenever you see a teammate with that purple bar below the character, just attack them with any fast-hitting skills or auto attacks to free them, because then they will be able to dodge any future attacks, and it's very common and very likely that you will get frozen throughout the fight. So just keep your eyes on your teammates. If they ping, obviously if you use voice, just call it that you've been frozen with a ping so people know where to look at. Other than that, just be prepared to dodge a lot of the AoEs, and even though the fight itself looks rather hectic, it's just better to keep a literally cool mind and not overreact over things. If you get frozen, don't just spam shit, don't just go nuts, just ask your teammates to help you. If you see people maybe taking the wrong spot or so, just try to adapt, see if there's another spot that the person that was supposed to go there didn't go to, and try to fill the gap. And usually, after a few attempts, you should be able to clear this Void dungeon. Anywho, this is all for Payton Void, the Underwater Sanctuary number 3 guide. I hope this is helpful and helps to pave the way for new people that start doing this dungeon, especially now that the boost helps you to get to 915. I do stream on Monday, 1700 CST, so if you want to see me live playing Lost Ark and other games, feel free to check out my Twitch channel as well. Other than that, I do hope this is helpful. I wish you guys a lovely day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys next time.